There is a particular kind of emptiness that arrives only after achieving surface excellence at many things. Not the emptiness of failure. This is the emptiness of success without depth. The hollow feeling of being competent across a wide landscape while never having planted yourself deeply anywhere that actually matters. A person can climb to a certain height in many mountains and discover that climbing is not the same as arriving anywhere real. Tonight, we are going to examine why the most satisfied, most alive people you know are rarely the ones with the most diverse skills, the most varied accomplishments, or the longest resumes. They are almost always the ones who have chosen to go deep in a domain that genuinely calls to them, and who have had the courage to let everything else gradually fall away. If you have ever felt scattered across too many pursuits, this is for you. If you have ever felt the quietly terrifying suspicion that you are becoming excellent at things that do not actually matter to you, stay close. If you are the kind of person who has been told your versatility is your greatest strength, and wondered quietly whether it might actually be your greatest problem, this hour was built exactly for you. Here is a truth most people only discover through the painful loss of decades. Breadth without depth is just collection. You can collect skills, accomplishments, experiences, opinions, followers, all across the surface of 100 different domains. But a collected life is not the same as a lived life. A collected resume is not the same as a built work. By the time you reach the final chapters of this audiobook, you will understand why the person who chooses one deep commitment often produces more remarkable results than the person who maintains competence across many. More importantly, you will understand why that choice is the only one that ever produces genuine satisfaction. There is a difference between being busy and being engaged. Nobody teaches you to tell them apart. That is the first thing we will fix tonight. Settle in. Let the room go quiet. This is not a video for half attention. This is a slow conversation with the part of you that knows very clearly which domain you have been meant to explore deeply, and which has instead chosen comfort and variety to avoid the vulnerability that true commitment requires. Before we begin, one small acknowledgement. The previous audiobook asked you to slow down. This one asks you to go deep. They are not the same choice, and honoring both is where the actual work of building a meaningful life begins. Chapter 1. The Myth of Renaissance Man. There was once a cultural ideal that never quite disappeared. The Renaissance man. The person equally skilled across art, science, philosophy, music, politics, business. This ideal still shapes how many thoughtful people approach their own lives, as a project of developing competence across as many domains as possible, as though the goal of a life were to become a kind of human museum exhibit, impressive in its variety and range. What this ideal never addresses is the texture of actually living a collected life. A person can be decent at a dozen things and exceptional at none. They can be busy across 100 pursuits and engaged by none of them. They can amass accomplishments across an entire landscape and never once experience the particular kind of satisfaction that comes from going so deep into a single domain that the surface concerns finally fall away and you are swimming in something genuinely valuable. Consider how much of a typical ambitious person's energy is spent maintaining baseline competence across multiple domains. A business person who is also trying to be a fitness expert, a photographer, a writer, a leader in their spiritual community, an intellectual conversationalist about philosophy, a devoted parent, a person with a serious investment practice. Each of these deserves depth. Each of these, pursued seriously, is a lifetime commitment. Yet many people try to maintain them all, rarely going deep in any of them, staying instead at that surface level where competence is possible, but mastery is not. The Stoics understood something about this that still applies directly. They asked, repeatedly, what you were actually put on earth to do, not what you were capable of doing, not what would impress others, but what, if you examined your own nature honestly, you seemed to be built for. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to this question across decades of rule because he understood that a life lived across 100 surfaces is a life never actually lived at all.
Here is the quiet truth nobody tells you. Every pursuit you maintain at surface level is a commitment you are making to never go deep anywhere else. Surface excellence at many things and genuine mastery at nothing is not versatility. It is a form of permanent amateur hour, lasting an entire lifetime.
Chapter 2. The price of the Renaissance attempt. There is a specific tax paid by people who have tried to remain competent across too many domains. Call it the maintenance tax. It is the energy required to keep all those plates spinning, just well enough that nothing drops, but never well enough that anything actually flies. Consider what it actually costs to maintain baseline competence in a domain that does not genuinely call to you. It requires consistent input, reading, practicing, updating your knowledge, staying current. It requires explaining to yourself, over and over, why this particular pursuit still deserves your time. It requires resisting the obvious observation that someone else, someone whose genuine passion lies in that domain, would make infinitely better use of the hours you are spending to stay merely competent. The nervous system knows this, even when the conscious mind is still trying to convince itself that versatility is valuable. You can feel it in the particular kind of fatigue that comes from being stretched across too many territories, never settled anywhere, never able to stop and actually rest because setting anything down feels like failure, like a betrayal of potential, like admitting that you were not the kind of exceptional person who could do everything. Nobody tells you this. The competence you are maintaining across 5 different pursuits is draining energy from the one deep work that might actually produce something meaningful. That energy does not come from nowhere. It comes directly from the attention and focus that mastery actually requires. Seneca wrote to his friend about the value of reading deeply in one philosopher rather than collecting scattered thoughts from many. The same principle applies to every domain. A person who spends 5 hours this week collecting surface knowledge across 5 different subjects will have advanced far less than a person who spent those same 5 hours going one level deeper in one subject they are genuinely building toward understanding. Chapter 3. The season when you stop collecting. There is a moment, and if it has not happened to you yet, it will, when the cost of maintaining surface competence across too many domains finally becomes visible and undeniable. For some people, this arrives as exhaustion that no amount of weekend rest can touch. For others, it arrives as a quiet recognition, watching someone far less accomplished than yourself move deeper into a single domain and discover a kind of mastery and satisfaction you have never actually felt. This is not a crisis of confidence. This is the first honest data point you have received in years about the actual cost of your choices. Here is the truth few are willing to say plainly. You cannot be excellent everywhere without being mediocre everywhere. There is no exception to this. No amount of talent, time management, or determination changes the basic mathematics of depth. Deep work requires time. Deep work requires focus. Deep work requires the willingness to be a beginner in multiple domains simultaneously, and most people would rather stay perpetually competent than risk being temporarily incompetent. Frankl observed, in his writings on meaning, that what most people are actually searching for is not happiness, but a sense that their life has mattered, that they have built something, contributed something, left something behind that would not have existed without their specific effort. This is not achievable through surface excellence. This is only achievable through depth. This is the moment the Renaissance fantasy reveals its cracks. What you do next determines whether you continue trying to maintain competence everywhere, or whether you finally begin the terrifying work of choosing to go deep somewhere specific, which means explicitly choosing to remain a surface-level dabbler everywhere else. Most people, understandably, choose to continue maintaining. The idea of publicly admitting that you are not going to become excellent at something is uncomfortable. The idea of telling people, "I am not going to pursue that anymore," when they have known you as someone interested in that domain, feels like a failure. Yet this discomfort is precisely the barrier standing between surface collection and genuine mastery. Chapter 4. Choosing your depth. Sovereignty over depth is not about working more. It is about deciding, deliberately, which single domain actually deserves the deep commitment you are capable of giving, rather than defaulting to trying to maintain competence everywhere and mastery nowhere. This single distinction separates people who produce enduring work from people who remain perpetually busy without ever building anything that lasts. Most people never make this choice consciously. Instead, depth is assigned to them by circumstance, the domain that paid them first, the role they fell into, the expectation they inherited from their family. These assignments, while sometimes fortunate, are rarely the domain where genuine passion actually lives, and a person can spend decades building expertise in a domain that was never actually theirs to choose. Choosing your depth requires answering a question that most ambitious people have learned to avoid. If you were going to eliminate everything from your life except one domain you could develop to genuine mastery, which domain would you actually keep? Not which would impress others, not which would pay best, but which domain, honestly, calls to your particular way of seeing the world. By the time you reach the middle chapters of this audiobook, you will notice something shifting in how you evaluate your own pursuits, a growing ability to ask, before adding anything new, whether this is a breadth pursuit or a depth pursuit, and whether you actually have the capacity to commit to depth in this domain without sacrificing the depth you are already building elsewhere. There is a particular practice that deep builders across every domain return to, the practice of saying no to everything except the work that actually matters to them. Not no to rest, not no to relationships, not no to anything valuable, but no to the 1,000 small requests and opportunities that would consume an hour here, 2 hours there, pulling focus constantly away from the domain you are trying to go deep in. Chapter 5. The Particular Satisfaction of Depth. Modern life is engineered to reward you for breadth and punish you for depth. Every notification, every opportunity, every social encouragement pushes toward expanding your portfolio of interests and accomplishments. True depth is quiet, unremarkable from the outside, invisible to the people not paying close attention. Consider what it actually feels like, at the nervous system level, to go deep into a domain that genuinely calls to you. Not the feeling of accomplishment after finishing a breadth project. That is a surface satisfaction, bright and quick, fading within hours. The feeling of depth is something else entirely, a state where the domain you are exploring becomes so familiar that the initial anxiety of incompetence has long since faded, and you are now moving through territory that is complex enough to hold your full attention indefinitely, but simple enough that you have developed real skill navigating it. This is the state the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow, not because it feels easy, but because the difficulty is perfectly calibrated to your current skill level, producing a kind of engagement that produces genuine satisfaction rather than just the dopamine hit of novelty that breadth provides. If this video has been useful so far, this is the moment to leave a mark of that. A single tap costs nothing and tells the algorithm that a person, not a bot, found value in depth itself. Consider it a small acknowledgement that in a platform built for distraction, depth is a choice worth marking. The particular satisfaction of depth is available only to people willing to spend enough time in a domain that they can move past the beginner stage, past the intermediate stage, into a level of understanding where the terrain finally stops feeling hostile and starts feeling like home. Chapter 6. The Identity that Forms Through Depth. Somewhere around the point where you have committed years to a specific domain, something shifts in how you see yourself. You no longer have an interest in that domain. You are becoming a person defined by deep engagement with that domain. This shift is terrifying to people trying to maintain flexibility, because it feels like you are closing off options. In truth, it is the moment genuine identity finally begins to form.
Consider how identity actually solidifies. It is not through collecting a diverse set of skills. It is through decades of repeated engagement with a specific domain, encountering the same types of problems over and over, deepening your understanding of how to navigate them until your approach becomes almost invisible, so integrated into how you think and move that it no longer feels like effort. This is the identity that endures, not the identity of the person who is good at many things, but the identity of the person who has gone so deep into one thing that other people look at them and see, not a collection of skills, but a coherent way of being in the world. The Stoics understood something about this, that genuine strength, genuine mastery, genuine character come not from breadth, but from depth. A person who has gone deep enough into philosophy that they have internalized its principles does not need to display their knowledge. The way they move through the world announces what they understand. Here's the deepest truth in this chapter. The identity that forms through depth is the only identity strong enough to actually guide you through difficulty. A surface identity falls apart the moment the context changes.
A deep identity, because it is built on genuine understanding rather than collected skills, remains coherent across changing circumstances. Chapter 7. The Compounding Advantage of Deep Work. Nothing pursued in shallow bursts across many domains accumulates without consequence, and nothing pursued with genuine depth compounds the way mastery does over time, a compounding that most people never trace because they abandon domains before the depth ever actually compounds into something remarkable. The advantage of deep work is not apparent in the first year. A person going deep into a single domain in year 1 looks from the outside like they are making slower progress than the person maintaining breadth across 5 domains. The comparison is deceptive. By year 5, the person who chose depth is operating at a level the breadth person never reached. By year 10, the difference is not close. This is the concept the entire audiobook has been circling since the opening chapter, and now we name it directly. The goal was never to be good at many things. It was to become genuinely excellent at something specific and to discover what that excellence actually feels like, actually produces, and actually means for how you move through the world. Trace the compounding advantage of depth and domains around you. Every person who has produced something genuinely significant, a body of work that lasts, that shapes fields, that produces results other people build on, has done so through depth, through years of repeated engagement, through the accumulation of understanding that simply is not available to the breadth maintainer who is always learning the fundamentals in each new domain. This is not a small claim. A person who commits to depth in a chosen domain this year, rather than continuing to spread attention across many, will be living in a measurably different reality 10 years from now. Not just more accomplished in that domain, but more genuinely satisfied, more coherent in identity, more capable of the kind of focus and presence that actually produces meaningful work. Chapter 8. Breaking the breadth addiction. The mind has a habit of protecting its existing portfolio of identities and pursuing additional identities to ensure against the vulnerability that comes with real commitment to depth. Call this the breadth addiction, a quiet, constant pull to keep options open, maintain flexibility, ensure that you are never dependent on any single domain for your identity or livelihood. Here is how the addiction operates in daily life. You hear about something interesting. Your pattern is to immediately begin collecting skills related to it, reading about it, taking a course, attending events. The breadth addiction tells you that this is what learning looks like, that versatility is security, that the more options you maintain, the more insulated you are from being wrong about which domain will matter in the future. The breadth addiction ensures you, it tells you, against commitment to the wrong thing. This is one of the most insidious forms of fear, precisely because it disguises itself as wisdom. The language of keeping options open, of maintaining flexibility, of not putting all your eggs in one basket, sounds reasonable. Yet what it actually produces is a life where no eggs are anywhere with enough depth to ever hatch into something real. Breaking this addiction does not require abandoning the breadth-pursuing life suddenly. It requires one honest question, asked without flinching. If I never learned anything new again, and instead spent the next 10 years going deeper into a domain I have already begun but never fully committed, most people never ask, because the answer requires admitting that the breadth strategy was never actually a strategy for success. It was a strategy for avoiding the vulnerability of genuine commitment. Chapter 9. The territory beneath the surface. There's a particular kind of richness available only to people who have gone deep enough into a domain that what initially appeared to be a simple landscape reveals itself as infinitely complex. The territory beneath the surface of any genuine domain of expertise is not flat and boring. It is labyrinthine, endlessly rewarding to explore, and entirely invisible to people who have never descended below the surface. Nietzsche pointed toward this in his writings on the relationship between depth and happiness, noting that the deepest pleasures come not from breadth, but from understanding built across years. The person who knows a domain deeply is not bored by that domain. They are endlessly engaged by it because they have discovered the depth beneath what appears to the untrained eye to be a flat surface. You are closer to this territory than you think. Most of the work required was never about adding more pursuits. It was about abandoning the pursuit of breadth that was preventing you from ever descending deep enough to find what is actually there.
This is the territory beneath the surface, the particular kind of mastery that does not reveal itself until you have spent enough time in a domain that you have stopped trying to learn everything at once and started noticing the particular problems, the particular nuances, the particular elegances that only reveal themselves to someone patient enough to stay close for years. Chapter 10. The Architecture of a Deep Life. What remains once the breadth addiction, the comparison to Renaissance ideals, and the pursuit of surface excellence across too many domains are finally set down is not a smaller life. It is an actual life, one that is deep enough to be livable, coherent enough to feel like it belongs to you, purposeful enough to produce something that would not have existed without your specific commitment. This is the final shift this audiobook has been building toward. A life does not need to be broad to be full. It needs to be deep. And depth is measured in years, not in how diverse your portfolio of interests happens to look. Consider what this architecture actually looks like in practice. It is rarely a sudden transformation visible to outside observers overnight. It is expressed in small, repeated decisions. The new opportunity evaluated not for its intrigue, but for whether it actually serves the depth you are building. The distraction recognized and set aside, the choice to do one thing well, rather than 10 things adequately. Over years, these small decisions compound into a coherent life that no amount of breadth could ever produce. There is a particular kind of confidence available only to a person who knows they have committed their deepest work to a domain that genuinely calls to them. Not the loud confidence of breadth, but a quiet, ground-bearing steadiness that does not require external validation, because it is built on the internal coherence of a life lived in genuine alignment with what actually matters to you. The sovereign conclusion. We began this hour with a particular kind of emptiness that arrives after surface excellence across many things. We asked, what would happen if you finally chose depth over breadth, mastery over collection, commitment over flexibility? Now you know. What remains is deeper, but it is not narrower. It is more precisely you than anything breadth could ever produce. Genuine mastery in place of surface competence, real identity in place of collected skills, meaningful work in place of busy achievement. This same principle, that depth in fewer places produces more than breadth across many, is the thread connecting tonight's chapters to the previous audiobook, where we examined the discipline of moving slowly rather than frantically. Quiet discipline and deep work are, in the end, the same practice wearing different names. The willingness to choose what actually matters and to allow everything else to fall away without guilt or regret. If you moved with quiet discipline because the previous audiobook called to you, this one is asking you to move that discipline toward one thing worth going deep in. Not discipline for its own sake, but discipline in service of depth, of genuine mastery, of a work that will outlast you. Before you go, one question, and I would genuinely like to know your answer. Of the 10 chapters tonight, which one named a domain you have known honestly you should have gone deep in but have instead kept as a breadth pursuit? Comment the chapter number below, chapter 1 through chapter 10. I read every one.